All right, welcome to the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel. I have a very special guest today, Aubrey Logan, who is a pop jazz vocalist, trombone player, composer, arranger from, I think, from Seattle, Washington, if I'm correct,
right.
originally. A couple of interesting things. I didn't know you were on the American Idol.
Yeah.
That was what, back in 2009?
Oh, yeah. I was
So,
rejected from American Idol in 2009. Yes.
oh, you were, so you were on that. I saw that you did win the Audience Choice Award and Jury's First Place Award at the 2009 Sure Montreux Jazz Festival in Switzerland. And then in 2009, you were a featured artist for the Postmodern Jukebox and the Dave Koz Band.
That was a little later than
A little
that. But
later.
yeah.
Then I saw that you grew up with musical parents, so I'm definitely interested in hearing about that, that they were both teachers, so that I think probably created a really neat environment. Your mom was a singer, your dad was a trumpet player.
Yep.
Your artistic endeavors as a kid, I think, was a singer. First of all, you were singing in church, I think, right? And you in theater as well. And
Yeah.
at the age of 12, you started playing the trombone, and
I
that's when you
did.
kind of got into jazz.
No.
You've got, I think, this is going to be your fifth record, I think, of your own, and you've played on like at least a dozen others with other
Yeah.
people, it looks like.
Yeah. I think this is my fourth full album. Or, well, fifth because of Christmas. Fifth.
Okay, fifth
Christmas
record.
really, that's a big one.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah.
forget about that.
And then on your last record, I was listening to your last record, Standards, and you've got so many engaging performances on there. You have wonderful vocals. You're a very powerful and dynamic singer. And I was listening to like Fascinating Rhythm, the way you were on the Sunny Side of the Street.
Yeah.
And then on this new record, which we're going to be talking about, which is I think coming out next month, you're going to be doing some songs you've already recorded, but you're going to be doing them in a big band style as
Yeah.
well as some new tunes, right?
It's time to make a big band album. Yes.
Awesome. So let's get into a little bit. Tell us a
Sure.
little bit about your growing up in Seattle and then learning what made you interested in music. Your parents get you into that?
Yeah, I mean, I was never forced to be interested in music, but the eclectic taste that my parents had was on display all the time in the home. So we would listen to Stevie Wonder and Beethoven and Dolly Parton and Michael Jackson and the Eagles within a span of 30 minutes, and I just thought that was normal. I just thought that's what people did. My dad was a band director and trumpet player. He was a jazzer. My mom really sounds a lot like Karen Carpenter when she sings. She's really great. And so all the classic songwriters were constantly in my ears, which is probably where I got the songwriting bug. And a lot of jazz was in my ears. Couldn't avoid it. So as far as why I got into it, it was just not something I wasn't ever into, especially with just the exposure to what I was listening to from such a young age. You always hear the teachers harp on students to listen to music. Well, nobody ever had to say that to me. It wasn't ever absent from my life. So I think that's very valuable. I really am grateful for that. And I was singing in church, and it became very obvious that I wanted to sing. I didn't really have anything else I liked to do better. I tried some things, but no. And so I wanted to emulate all the singers I heard and saw. So I would put on shows for my parents, sing at church every opportunity I got, audition for everything that was auditionable. And in my region of the country, we weren't in Hollywood, we weren't in Nashville where you took your kid down to get a record deal. We had musical theater available to us. And so I auditioned for that. And so that's what I did. And then, in musical theater, you learn to memorize, block, play to the audience, put on a show, be very prepared, sing the way the director says, dance the way the director says. And then it wasn't until I started playing the trombone that I was more exposed to jazz. And then when I was more exposed to jazz, it was like, oh, I don't have to do exactly what the director says. I don't have to do exactly the way it's supposed to go. I can improvise. Ella Fitzgerald is singing the same songs I've been hearing, except she's doing them however she wants. So that sort of morphed together. And then the pop songwriting, I mean, I was always listening to Billy Joel and Carole King, and it all bleeds together to me. I know it sounds like different things to others, but to me, they don't have very many differences at all.
Yeah, you could tell by your different recordings that you have a lot of different pop songs in there, but you jazz them up a little. You make them your own, and then the trombone comes later, right? That's when you get into that. And then what made you choose that instrument versus piano, trumpet?
Dad played trumpet. I didn't want to do that. My mom taught choir at my school. I didn't want to be there. When you're 12. The band director encouraged me to choose a low brass instrument. I totally know that's because he didn't have enough. My uncle had a trombone. I was able to borrow it. I could make a sound on it. The sound was satisfying as a young girl, like, oh, this is actually working. I like this. I'm going to stick with this. My dad was such a fan of Chicago, Earth, Wind, and Fire. I had heard the trombone anyway, James Brown. I already knew I had a reference for it. I didn't really realize it was so much like the human voice until later on, how flexible it is and how expressive it is, and how, it can be manipulated that way. That was a happy accident, I suppose. But back to the big band thing, I was playing in big bands right away because of the school program I was in. And so making this big band record, I mean, it took many years for me to come around to do this. I can't believe it took me this long. And I can, because, it's a lot of people to hire. It's a lot of people to be involved. But it seems like the tradition is alive and well, because the reason I did this big band record is because I've been teaching at colleges and high schools. I'll go to a school, do a concert with the students, and I'll bring my music to them. And what do they have at the schools? Big bands. So what did I have to do with my music? Get it arranged for big band. So I had all these arrangements, but we hadn't recorded them. So it was time. And so now we have the Aubrey Logan and Her Bigger Than Average Band album coming out November 1st.
And that's going to be on vinyl, I saw, and CD and streaming.
Yes, of course, everywhere.
Which is really cool.
And 2 singles are out now.
Right, those are fantastic. I Feel the Earth Move. That's a great version of that. And what was it, the Airport Codes, I think?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the record here in a minute, but I wanted to find out, so who were your favorite singers when you were learning to sing? I know you just named several different, you listen to country, you listen to pop music, jazz music. Who were some of the jazz vocalists, though, that really caught your attention, that influenced you?
Ella Fitzgerald's the biggest one. I listened to her more than I listened to any other female jazz singer. Diane Shore, who I did get the chance to meet and sing with twice later in my life. Huge influence. This is all thanks to my parents, by the way. Linda Ronstadt, who's very versatile. I mean, she has standards singer as well as all of her country stuff, all of her rock stuff, and even her mariachi stuff. She just uses her voice in a powerful way and in all sorts of ways. So I identify a lot with that. Joe Williams, when it comes to listening to big bands and the singer singing with big bands. Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole. But more the Joe Williams, Frank Sinatra when it comes to performance, because I think I prefer that grit and the speech level they use. So I can't get them out of my head. Those were the big jazz influences I had.
And then what about when it comes to the trombone side?
Mostly saxophone players. Quite frankly, I didn't grow up listening to a lot of trombone players to emulate when I was learning to improvise. I was listening to mostly Dexter Gordon, and I was listening to mostly big bands. So it was all very holistic in my brain. It wasn't until later that I really started breaking down J.J. Johnson and Frank Rosolino. They weren't really influences for me. Music, all music, bluegrass influences my trombone playing. Singing influences my trombone playing. Other trumpet players, other saxophone players, trombone players can, but it never really was the main thing for me. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's what
I
you play
used
it
to be
very well.
afraid of answering. I used to feel
Yeah.
bad for answering this question, but it's the truth.
Well, and I think it's the trombone. I think does lend itself well to a vocalist. I think you know. So when you, what about? So you went to Berkeley College, correct?
I did
And
in
so tell
Boston.
us a little bit about that. How did that affect? Did that really help you develop further as a musician? I'm interested to hear about that a little bit.
Yeah, thing, the biggest effect Berklee College of Music had on me were my peers. The biggest effect were seeing all my friends really try their best to write a song, workshop it with one another, and get it knocked down and try again. Seeing other people sing, playing with other instrumentalists in the big bands. Really, it was just a bunch of us nerds getting together at school in one pressure cooker. In fact, to this day, some people that help me out on a regular basis are my alumni friends. The professors were great. Don't get me wrong. I learned more from Phil Wilson and John Fiata, Christine Vossen, Dave Scott. Lots of faculty really, really helped me out. Big time. I mean, they gave me methods to practice that I couldn't figure out. All sorts of great things. And but what they were doing was facilitating a place for students to do absolutely everything they've ever wanted to try musically. So it's very, very hard to come out of that and not be highly influenced by your peers. That was the biggest blessing of Berklee for sure. The full ride was nice, but
Yeah,
there would have been no way for me. But I'm astounded by how versatile my peers are and were at the time. I mean, it was like 2006 when I went there until like 2010, and pretty great.
then what about going and playing live? So how did you get your experience playing in clubs? Did you go to jam sessions and different things like that? And did you play with a lot of people?
Constantly.
And so tell us a little bit about that, because I'm always interested. A lot of people, I think, don't realize that in jazz, there's kind of you really have to get up there and play with other people and learn the jazz language and learn how to interact with people. So tell us a little bit about that. Getting into that and how that was for you.
Well, I constantly was going to jam sessions while I was in school. That's just what everybody was doing at the end of the night. The kids would host jam sessions. We would go to the Tower of Power jam session and learn how to play funk. We would go to the jazz jam sessions and get in there and play and improvise. All it did was teach me all the harmonic stuff that I hadn't gotten under my fingers yet, and all of the scales and arpeggios that I hadn't quite practiced enough yet, and all of those things. And all it did was make me go home and practice afterwards and then come back and do it better the next time. But it's a in the moment type of language. I'm sure there were traditions, before my time where people would get together and have nothing but fun when they would jam, and it was all fun. But when you're in like an academic student kind of environment, everybody's kind of there to one up each other. So I love to make fun of that. That's just my favorite thing to do ever. Jazz musicians who take themselves too seriously are so easy to poke fun at. It's great. There's an entire memes page about that, and including myself. I mean, I'm making fun of me or past me, but that really you have to get your reps in jamming in order to feel confident improvising on stage. You have to just do it. It's not something you can just practice by yourself in a room with no audience, with no other people around, and then expect to feel like it's natural when you get on a stage. Same with leading a band, same with any of that. So I've been fortunate enough to be thrust onto a stage from an early age. Yes, when the jazz came in, the improvisational aspect of that was different, very different than musical theater, very different than other things I was doing. But the more you do it, the more desensitized you are to it, and the easier it becomes, and the better it is.
So when you had to learn a lot of standards, we have a jam session here in Birmingham, Alabama, where we have a couple of Alabama Jazz Hall of Fame players. Then they run the jam session here in Birmingham every Tuesday evening. And it's a lot of fun, and a lot of different people will come up and play. But the guy that runs the jam session, Jose Carr, he's always like, you need to make sure that if you're going to get up there and play, at least you know the song, you know the melody, that kind of thing. Otherwise. But did you have any kind of, I guess, different things happen to you where you go to play live on stage or whatever, and then have to, maybe. Just because of the way I experience it here at this jam session, a lot of times if someone gets up and they don't really kind of, well, you didn't learn the song, and Jose will be up there and say, hey, you need to go back, make sure you learn learn the melody.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't know the song, I probably shouldn't go up there.
Yeah, you're right.
Or I shouldn't call it. I shouldn't call it tune that I don't know. And that's always humbling. Is go, and then it's also kind of great. You can hear tunes that you go, you know what? I've never learned that. It's time to go and learn that. But absolutely, I would say I'm not the only one who's had to spend hours upon hours upon hours putting in the time to learn the Great American Songbook, for sure.
And then singing, so you're a fantastic singer. I mean, you really have an unbelievable voice.
Thank you.
And the range and the way you can move up. So tell us a little bit about how you learned to do that. Was that something natural that you just developed over time? And
mostly.
And then how do you? I know singers. I do a little singing, but I do mostly blues stuff, so it's not too technical. How do you learn the jazz language or in the techniques to be able to do all of the notes and go up and down the registers like you do? Because it's not something that's very easy, that's for sure.
I grew up, I'll age myself here by saying this, but I grew up without a smartphone. And when you're a kid, and I was an only child, and when you're an only child alone in your room and you love nothing more than singing, what is it that you do in your room? Sing. I had the opportunity to be bored for hours upon hours. I craved time alone experimenting with my voice. And I was doing musical theater, hearing other people sing, getting trained. And I was in choir, learning technique. And I took opera lessons from age 12 until I graduated high school.
Wow. Okay.
And I was listening to the best singers ever because even though I didn't have the smartphone, I still had CDs. I had, I was hearing what my parents were doing. So I was doing everything I could to emulate Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson's riffs and Michael Jackson's staccato and Whitney Houston's riffs. So when you're not scrolling a phone and you're that young, imagine what you can learn to do. I mean, I have friends my age that certainly were not in music, but they were doing the same exact thing with woodworking or something, and now they're experts in that. So it's not really that much of a mystery. It's just hours and hours and hours of seeing what my voice could do. And my parents just kind of let me free range do that while also having enough training to ask the questions I needed to ask, hear other people do it, see other people do it. It's not, it wasn't easy, but it's quite simple.
A lot of practice, a lot of dedication. That's what I hear a lot from all the different musicians I talk to, is they have such a love for it and dedication for it that it's a huge part of their life. A lot of dedication.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that it was that hard. I do love it. It wasn't something I forced myself to do or that I did begrudgingly in any way. I did piano lessons somewhat begrudgingly. I now regret not following through more with that because as an arranger, it would be nice to just be a little better, be a little faster. So I'm not saying it's not good to do some things that you don't want to do. And musically, we've all had to do that. But for the most part, it was a joy and a what I wanted to go do, what I craved to go do.
Passion, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about this record. So how did you start working on developing this, the idea to do it? And you said you were started off early in big band, but this is your first actual recording. So tell us a little bit about how you came up with the project and how you started developing it.
Well, in the past few years, I've been visiting colleges and high schools, like I was saying before, and Every now and then I would get asked to come, and maybe the first time I got asked to go somewhere, they said, "Do you have anything for our big band to play?" Well, the answer is no. Okay, well then we're gonna make something. I'll do 5. I'll get 5 written, and maybe you, teacher so and so, can write another. And then over the years, that just kept happening and happening and happening. Before I know it, I have 20 songs written for big band. Then I moved to Austin, Texas in 2020, started to meet everyone here, started to meet my peers, finding out, wow, this is a huge jazz hub here. This is a volcano of jazz musicians, tons of great horn players. UT has a huge jazz program. Half my band teaches at UT now, and all of this. And now, and then I make friends with my friend Mike Sailors, who arranged the majority of this album in a Bigger Than Average band. And he and I just went, okay, I love playing with a big band. I've played with yours. And he says, well, I'm going to arrange some stuff for you, maybe my way. Be on my show. I'll be on your show. And then we had this book. And then, so it was time to make a new album. It was just kind of every year and a half, every 2 years. I have this great manager. We've been working together for like 10 years. It's kind of like, knock, knock. Okay, let's make another album. What's it going to be? Well, the standard was fun. I could write a bunch more originals, and I do that, and I'm releasing those as singles quite often. But I have, at least a huge bulk of the work is done. I have this fantastic book of big band stuff. We could just fill in the blanks, fill in what we need more of. Mike and I got together. I said, okay, we're going to do this. We have fantastic, it takes such an engineer to put 15 horn players in one room and not mess up with the microphones. and we have Charlie Kramsky here in Austin who did that. Fantastic studio we use. One take wonders here. We can't do more than 3 takes. Studio time is really expensive. I'm not overdubbing any vocals. We had to get like the best of the best people in the room, and I was in the perfect town for it. So I'm thrilled. We when it came to choosing the songs, cool things were coming up already that sort of explained, oh, we should do this song. I did a PBS special with the Army Big Band, the Jazz Ambassadors, and that'll air in November. And they wanted to do a Veterans Day specials with a big band. And so I'm like, what kind of songs do you guys want? And they wanted, some old school stuff. We did How High the Moon. But I said, what about Amazing Grace for a big band? And I'm thinking, how is it going to be sensitive enough? And Mike Sailors knocked it out of the park. So that's my favorite track on the whole album. It's lush. It's gorgeous. It took more. That one was hard to do because when harmonies are this tight and you have like 50,000 people playing notes, intonation gets rough. But we did it. It's on there. I really loved Gloria Estefan growing up, and she had those synth horns on her Miami Sound Machine albums. And I'm kind of going, why don't we do real horns? So we did Anything for You, which is my homage to, you got to do a song that came out when the year you were born, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got other songs that you've done already, like the Done Pretending. You did that on a different record, right? So you rearranged that for big band. You picked Route 66. I think that's on this one, right?
That one Gordon Goodwin arranged. That's not a Mike arrangement. That's a Gordon arrangement. Very excited about that one.
And then The Way We Were and MacArthur Park is on there.
Yep.
That's the last one. So how did you pick the players? Or tell us a little bit about that.
I had Mike Sailors pick the players. And I already knew who they were because of being here in Austin. They're all it's an Austin-based band.
Okay.
And they play together a lot. They're fantastic musicians. We have Santana Rojas on trumpet, Eric Johnson on lead trumpet. That guy's very consistent. Sam Dimov on trombone, Jordan Jacques on trombone, Elias Hasslinger on tenor sax, Joey Colarusso on tenor sax, Gene Centeno on alto sax. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can remember everybody. Eric Hargett on bari sax, and then my rhythm section. Daniel Dufour, fantastic drummer. Ryan Hagler, absolutely fantastic bass player. Eli Menezes on guitar. And 2 piano players. Very close friend of mine, Sean Giddings, who produced a couple of my albums, Christmas and Standard. And then Andy Langham, who is another LA transplant, just like me, here in Austin now.
So how many days, first of all, what studio did you record in?
It's called Spectra Studios.
Okay, and then how long did you have to record all these songs? And then you're pretty much said they're all live takes. You just picked the best take. Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah, they're all live takes. 2 days.
2 days. So you pretty much went in there, booked the studio 2 days. Everybody got in there. Okay, let's hit this song. Let's hit this song, and then 2, maybe 3 times max. And then you went back and listened to them all and picked them out.
Yeah, that's right. And then mixed them later. A lot of the work is done beforehand, just with the arrangements.
Mm-hmm. And then what about, were you involved in any of the post-production, the mixing and the mastering, and then the pressing it to vinyl and all that kind of stuff? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the mixing and the mastering was me and Mike and Charlie, the engineer, in a room for a day. Charlie had done a ton of mixing before we get there. This is pretty typical. He wants to sit there with his ears by himself and do a bunch, and then we have our notes, we send him our big notes, and then we get together so that we're not in an email storm of email craziness. We get together in person. I mean, we could have done it over email, but with so many things going on an album, it was so much easier just to get together. A lot of it was Mike took over a lot of the horn stuff. And I was like, okay, turn my voice up or down here. And then one time during that day, I kept asking for him to turn the bass up. And then I kind of go, no, it's not enough. Can you put it on a different speaker? Put it on the phone. We listen on the nice speakers. We listen on an iPhone. We listen on an Android. We listen on headphones. We listen on cheap headphones. What you really have to do is listen in the car. So he sends me a mix, I put it in my phone, I get in my car, and he's like, I think you're going to tell me to turn the bass up one more time. So you need to get in your car and listen to this and go take a drive and then come back. So I got in my car while they had a coffee break, realized, I need it up even more. Because when you're on the highway, what's the first thing to go? The low end.
Right.
And so we turned up Ryan's bass like 5 more times, and then by the end of the day we had a mix we liked. Charlie didn't want to master it. He's like, I'm done. I can't. My ears are spent. We send it to somebody else, Kevin Butler at Test Tube Audio. He mastered it, and I don't know much about mastering other than it makes all the songs sound like they're on the same project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the vinyl? So is this the second one you've done on vinyl, or have you done others? I think I saw 2 on your website anyway.
I think it's the third or fourth.
Okay.
Yeah, Impossible was on vinyl. Not Sunshine. We will do that. I'm no expert. I send it to the experts. Send it to the pros to press to vinyl for sure.
And are you a record collector at all, or do you?
I am, and now that my dad passed away last year, and now I have hundreds.
Okay.
Hundreds that I just alphabetized, like yesterday finished.
Well, yeah, because on this channel, it's a lot of vinyl. I do a lot of vinyl record reviews.
You behind you, yeah.
And so a lot of people are interested to hear your take, on vinyl, what you think of that, and
I like it.
How does that sell, like compared to your CDs and that kind of stuff? And just are you finding are interested in the records?
Yeah. Way more than CDs. They want it way more than CDs. I think it's not something you need anymore, but it's something you want. It's something special. The sound is uncompressed. They're all unique. It's hard to, even from the same pressing, you're gonna get different crackles on different vinyl.
Right.
It's a warmer sound. It's a tangible experience that, again, is not necessary this day and age, but it's special. And that's what I think people are into.
And people like to get like an autographed record, if they're at the show.
Yeah, and the liner notes aren't so tiny.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. You have nice graphics or pictures and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you probably sell those at your shows. I wanted to talk a little bit about how are you taking this whole big band on the road, or do you just take your core band, and how's that going to work as far as like? Because I saw that you're going to be touring or going and playing your different places, right?
Forever and always. Yep, absolutely. Well, we are going to do a live stream show for everybody on two live stream broadcasts, one early in the day kind of for Europe, and then later in the day for the US on my Bandcamp. If people want to go, aubreylloganmusic.bandcamp.com. That'll be on the 1st of November. But the I will take this music with this repertoire all over the world, but will I necessarily take the whole band? Not necessarily, but that's okay because there are amazing players all over the world.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. I mean, I've played with great bands in Stockholm. I've played with great bands at colleges around the country. I also intend to. I have dreams of turning Austin into my little Vegas and making really a standing big band show. Would be the dream.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I've got some venues that I'm thinking about working with, and the first one's going to be for my Christmas show, and it's going to be the big band. We're going to do some of the stuff from the record, and we're going to take my Christmas record and guess what? Put a big band on it. So I'm very excited just to have this whole art form be a part of my world more now than it used to be.
So I see. I think when I was looking at your website, it looks like you're going to be in Alabama next year.
Yeah, with a college,
Tuscaloosa.
and they will have this repertoire.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's not very far from me. That's like a
good.
couple hours away. So I'll have to definitely check that out for sure.
Come see me.
And then if you come through Birmingham, the Tuesday before, because I think it's on a Thursday, you're here. I think.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in town on Tuesday evening in Birmingham area, that's the jam session, and
Sweet.
I'm sure they'd love to have you come up and
That's
sing or
exciting.
play. Yeah.
That's cool, Matthew. All right.
But yeah, that's so. Tell us a little bit more about some upcoming. Or what about any plans to record live? The big band live, possibly.
We just did.
Oh, you did.
We did, and that will be broadcast on November 1st. Yeah.
And then what about making a record on it, or putting it on vinyl or anything like that, or is that?
We could do that. That's certainly something we could do. Yeah, with what we've done so far.
Oh, cool.
But it's really video is king as well as vinyl.
Yeah.
And that is the main purpose. So that this can be. Sometimes people like to listen with their eyes. I don't, but it's not my world.
What about? Tell us the challenges about being an independent musician, because I love supporting working musicians and being an independent. Which, tell us about the challenges of that, because a lot of times you have to do all the heavy lifting yourself on projects.
I pay the band. I do the spreadsheets. I have management that helps me negotiate shows, but I book all the travel unless I hire the people to do. I do all the hiring. I do all the books. It's, you can't please everyone all the time. It's very not artistic to run a small business. That can get tiresome, but that's the world. That's the adult world. It's not glitz and glamour. It has to all happen somehow.
Right. Yeah.
Like somebody's got to make it happen. Otherwise it doesn't happen. I guess my mom said, when I was 6 years old, my mom said I was crying in my bed. She came to my room and asked me why I was crying. And I said, where am I going to get a band? Who's going to drive the bus? How am I going to get piano, bass, drums? How am I going to pay them? Who's it going to be? Who's going to do all the arrangements? Me. Who's going to do all the, I hire people now to do the big orchestral stuff and big band stuff. But like, it's still me. And the how is it done is, well, I got to do it.
Right.
I think the challenge is that sometimes people don't think about that. They just think you're up there having a great time, looking all glamorous, and you just got up there by magic, which is funny because I can't imagine how that could just happen out of nowhere. So that, I suppose that part's challenging, but it's okay. We're all adults. We all got to do adult things.
Yeah. How do you like traveling as far as, for you, I think it's pretty easy. Usually I always say it's probably traveling is easiest for the singer or for people that can carry. But
no, because I'm the one booking all the travel and making sure the band is happy and making sure they show up and making sure everybody has what they need and making sure I'm the one staying after the I wouldn't think it would be, well, I've got to, I'm the leader of the whole thing. Even if I hire a tour manager, it's still my tour budget. It's still and you're paying for 5 hotel rooms and 5 salaries and 5 or 6, or 10, planning all of that out, budgeting all of that out. I mean, a lot of singers are the band leader, doing all of that, doing all the
Right.
social media, doing all of making, not really resting, because you got to be documenting the tour to show your fans what you're doing. And then you need to be you don't rest after the show. You go to the merch line and talk to the fans, which is very important because they are supporting you and you got to love them. And then, you got to pay for the flights and figure out, do all this stuff.
What about, I'm always curious, how do you keep I think a lot of people don't realize, I think the singer of the band, as far as stress, all that kind of stuff, is hard on the voice. At least, how do you keep your voice in good shape? Tell me a little bit about that, because we do like a little acoustic blues thing here sometimes at a local pub, and I can't, after I sing for 2 hours, I'm like done. I'm like, I can't even sing the next day. How do you do that night after night? Or is there certain things you can do to keep your voice in good shape?
A lot of the times it's the habits you have when you're not singing. Sleep, all the things that you don't get on tour, good sleep, healthy food, good exercise, stuff like that. But, it's sometimes just as simple as like, sorry guys, I can't come to the bar with you after the show. I won't be there. Or just making sure you get the best sound you can get so that you're not over singing. There's a lot of adversity to overcome, but there are things you can, learning how to sing as powerfully as you can without abusing your voice. This is years long stuff to learn. Learning your limits, what you have to avoid. There's not enough honey and lemon in the world to help when your voice is tired or exhausted. Making sure you have a good bass line, those types of things.
What are there any things that you wouldn't drink before singing? Like do cold drinks and stuff? I for some reason, like if I drink cold water or something, it always seems to mess with my voice. Is that something you find?
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that's not ideal. Cold is one thing. Even too hot is one thing. Too much alcohol is not ideal. Any is sometimes not really truly not ideal, unless you're just so, I don't know. The truth is, though, so is air conditioning. Too much air conditioning, cigarette smoke around you. So just if singers fixate so much on their environment, they'll never go out and sing.
Right.
Because you can't avoid, the only water I have has been in the fridge. Okay, like if you're gonna worry about that, you're never gonna get up and sing and do anything because there's too much in the environment that's not ideal. Airplanes, what does every singer do before they sing? Fly. What's the worst place to be, humidity-wise? A flight. So we would never do any shows if we went by whether or not we got ideal situations before.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like a simple cold or something like that is very detrimental. Whereas obviously someone can play guitar or you can play bass and you can play piano and have a cold, but the singer, has kind of a tough road there.
Yeah, there have been a handful of times I've had to cancel shows. Otherwise, I would run the risk of a vocal injury. It's devastating because a lot of times you lose thousands of dollars when you cancel a show because you still got to pay the band for their time and you still got to... I try not to do that. There have been shows I've shown up to with no voice and the audience was just nice enough that I even showed up. Then there was a time when that was unacceptable to show up when you felt a little sick.
Right.
At recent time. So, it's just, again, it's just part of the territory.
Part of the territory, yeah. So traveling overseas and all that stuff, you enjoy it. And so how do you prepare a band? I know we're kind of getting close on time here, but how do you prepare the band? So let's say you're going to go overseas. Do you just send them the music, send them the recordings, and here's the stuff, learn it, and when we show up, Do you do any rehearsals, things like that, or you pretty much just hit the road
Sometimes
running?
we rehearse. Yeah, if it's people I've really never met before, we might rehearse. It's usually an extra day of travel though, which can get pricey. So usually we just do the first show is a nice rehearsal. But I'm fortunate enough to play with the best musicians in the world. And I send them the Dropbox, high Dropbox, full of music. They know what to do. We get there, it gets tighter as we go. And it's really fun.
Cool. What do you have for if you were talking to aspiring vocalists? Any words of wisdom here before we go? Anything? Any advice? Because I know you're involved in education as well. And so what's some words of wisdom for aspiring singers?
Put your band together now. Go to the local coffee shop that has a speaker and a stage and say, I'm your next show. Book it. Then you realize you have to play 45 minutes of music, which you don't have. Learn it. Then you realize you got to give the band or a piano player or a guitarist or a bassist 45 minutes of music, but you don't know how to notate. Learn how to do that. Start with the first thing, and then you'll learn what you don't know how to do that you need to learn how to do, and then you'll do it. And then you'll have a band, and then you'll have a career.
Build it. Just slowly build it. Huh?
Learn what you don't know that
No.
you have to know to do, and the only way to do that is to take that step. The first time you do anything is going to be not great. It's okay. If you're a perfectionist, you'll never get anything done. But you'll get better at it, and you'll sound better and better and better and have a better group and a better rapport, and more people will want to play with you the more you treat your musicians well, and so on and so on and so forth. Just start.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you coming on the channel. When is the album coming out? The exact date?
November the 1st.
November the 1st. So what I'll do is I'll put a link in the video here so that everybody can click on there and go over there. I think you've got pre-orders now.
I do.
So people can pre-order their vinyl records and CDs and all that stuff. So that's really exciting. And I look forward to seeing you when you come through Alabama. Hopefully you can make
Thanks,
the jam
Andy.
session.
Awesome. That would be so great.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.